the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Live Bet Christmas on VSiN.
And a very Merry Christmas to you. Coming to you from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas. I'm Scott Seidenberg. This is Live Bet Christmas here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. The Kansas City Chiefs have wrapped up the first of two NFL games here on Christmas Day. Kansas City defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers 29-10. They cover despite whatever number you got on the Kansas City Chiefs. At one point, we're up to a 3-point favorite, then at 2.5. This thing actually closed at Chiefs -2. So Steelers money coming in all the way until kickoff, but not the case, as it was a Kansas City game from start to finish. And with the win, the Chiefs now clinch the number 1 seed in the AFC playoff picture at 15-1, and we'll see what happens with their Week 18 game coming up against the Denver Broncos. If you are a Cincinnati Bengals backer, if you are maybe a Miami or Colts fan, you needed Denver to lose out in order for your team to make the playoffs. And with Kansas City winning here, even if the Broncos lose this week to the Cincinnati Bengals, the last week of the season, the Broncos play the Kansas City Chiefs, and Kansas City now has absolutely nothing to play for. That's something to keep an eye on. That's something to pay attention to. And the market will certainly reflect it. We'll see, Mahomes dealing with the injury, and we'll see if he actually winds up playing in that game. The fact that Travis Kelce got the touchdown today and the receptions today that put him over 1,000 career receptions, that made him the all-time leading touchdown receiver in Chiefs franchise history, surpassing Tony Gonzalez. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play in Week 18. If a lot of these Chiefs take a nice 2-week vacation, as they have a bye, obviously, but to not play in a meaningless Week 18 game, I could see that happening. And so, like I said, if you are a backer of a team like the Colts or the Dolphins or the Bengals that is relying on the Broncos to lose their remaining 2 games, well, this result here kind of puts a damper in those hopes. It also makes you consider what to do with the spread of the Broncos game against the Cincinnati Bengals. It was the Kansas City Chiefs win today deflating for Cincinnati, knowing that, okay, now the Chiefs are likely going to sit their guys and not play in Week 18. And so even if we beat Denver, we can't really rely on them to beat Denver in Week 18. And so you're looking at the spread here. You're looking at Cincinnati laying 3 over Denver, and it's 3.5 to 3. I wonder if it's a deflating moment for the Cincinnati Bengals, kind of realizing that even though they're not technically mathematically eliminated from postseason contention, their playoff chances certainly took a blow with this Kansas City Chiefs win, locking up home field advantage. I would feel the opposite if the Steelers won this game. If the Steelers won this game, you'd feel great as a Cincinnati backer, as a Colts backer, as a Dolphins backer. And I'd actually want to bet on the Broncos, and I'd lay the points thinking that there's so much motivation now because they beat the Broncos here on Saturday, and then all of a sudden seeing the game against the Chiefs in Week 18 where the Chiefs need to win to clinch that home field advantage. That's a motivating factor for Cincinnati. But not to be the case, as once again, the Chiefs win 29-10 over Pittsburgh. And with that loss, the Steelers are no longer in control of their path to the AFC North title. With a win today over the Texans, and then a win next week, it will be the Baltimore Ravens as AFC North champions. So that's all that Baltimore needed to happen, was for Pittsburgh to lose one of their remaining 2 games, and then for Baltimore to win out here against the Texans, and then Week 18 against the Browns, and who knows who's going to be at quarterback for the Browns. And for Pittsburgh, you got to hope that there's going to be a loss for the Ravens in order for you to have a chance to kind of reclaim this. but it's looking more likely as Pittsburgh has Cincinnati the final week of the season. And like I mentioned, the Ravens are now up to 6-point favorites over the Texans. And then they also have an easy game against the Browns coming up in week number 18. I'm Scott Seidenberg. You can hit me up on Twitter at ScottsOnAir, ScottsOnair. Hit us all up on the network at VSiN Live. This is Live Bet Christmas as we take you through the schedule here of your Christmas Day action. We will preview the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans, give out some best bets, some prop plays for that game as well, as we are about, I'd say, 25 minutes away from kickoff of that game. Christmas also known to be the unofficial start to the NBA season. I know a lot of casual NBA fans look at the Christmas Day slate, like those marquee games on Christmas, as the true start of the NBA season, or really like the moment that they start paying more attention to the NBA. And so the action got started off as it has most Christmases. I know there was a gap somewhere in between with the New York Knicks against the San Antonio Spurs. I've worked a lot of these Knicks early Christmas Day games. It's the noon tip-off at Madison Square Garden. And while early on there was a notion that the early start time would lend to the under coming in, and the under was a popular bet in these early tip-off times for the Knicks. You know, you would play, let's say, Knicks Sixers, Knicks Celtics, Knicks whoever at noon at Madison Square Garden. A lot of under money started to come in. But over the last 2 years, we've actually seen this trend reverse. 2 straight overs coming into today's game. I'm talking about specifically on Christmas in the noon tip-off. And so you can attribute that to a number of things. Has the market adjusted and now the totals are getting lower? Or are the players just used to this now? You know, and I know players come and go, but there are still players that carry over from year to year, coaches that carry over from year to year. And as you start playing more of these early tip-off times, specifically if you're used to playing on Christmas, you got to wonder if the familiarity aspect comes into play. And it's not so much the idea of waking up early or, plus the schedule has just been it's been changed so much with the NBA Cup has now kind of spread out the schedule for the teams that don't have to go to Vegas and play in the semifinals and finals. The fact that everybody plays on the 2 days before Christmas and then it's off on Christmas Eve and then you can wake up, you can play that Christmas morning game. We've seen 2 straight overs and now let's make it 3 straight overs as the Knicks beat the Spurs 117-114. The game goes over, but the Knicks do not cover as heavy favorites. They were up to 9-point favorites over the San Antonio Spurs. A big day for Victor Wembanyama, who scores 42 points to go along with 18 rebounds for the Spurs. For the Knicks, they were led by 41 points from Mikal Bridges, and he was 6 of 9 from three-point range, 21 points from Karl Anthony Towns, 20 from Jalen Brunson. And so the first of the Christmas Day NBA games goes the way, like the NFL, of the favorite, but not covering, just winning outright, as the Knicks failed to cover as heavy favorites, but they do win, and the game does go over. In Game 2 of the NBA's 5-game Christmas Day slate, we are actually in the third quarter right now between the Timberwolves and the Mavericks. Minnesota was 5.5 to 5-point underdogs in this game, and it has been all Minnesota, 81-60. Julius Randle's got 18 points, 7 boards, and 8 assists right now for the T-Wolves. But the big news in this game was that Luka Doncic out for the second half. So Luka being out was a big blow for the Dallas Mavericks in this spot. So no Luka in the second half. And now you're looking at a live line right now in this game where it's Minnesota laying 15.5. Looks like the game's going to go under. 217.5 is the live total here, and that's what happens when you have one team jumping out to such a big lead. When you like an over, you usually need both teams to score, and that's not the case here, as it is an 81-60 lead here in the third quarter for the Timberwolves and the Mavericks. Coming up in about a little less than an hour from now, we have the 76ers at the Celtics. Boston is back up to a 9.5-point favorite. So yesterday, leading into today, money had come in on the 76ers, and it had pushed this spread down, and now money back on the Celtics as they emerge now as the 9.5-point favorite in this game, and the total is sitting at 221. So the total has gone down a bit from what it was. So 221 is the total between the Sixers and the Boston Celtics. Coming up later, the Lakers will take on the Warriors. Golden State was a 3.5-point favorite, now up to a 4.5-point favorite, and money coming in on the under as well. Total down to 220, and then the nightcap will be the Denver Nuggets at the Phoenix Suns. This total is at 232, which is actually down again. So money has been on the under in seemingly all of these games, but this is still the highest total of the day at 232. Denver is a 2.5-point favorite, and this is a very interesting spot that we're going to get into a little bit later on in the program, because this is the immediate revenge spot in the NBA, which has normally been a historical trend for backing the team that lost. These two teams played on Monday with the Nuggets winning. And so now it's a rematch, but yet the Nuggets are still taking the money. We'll get into that game later. But coming up next, we will preview Ravens and Texans, prop bets, best bets, and more. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Hit me up on Twitter at Scott's On Air. Hit us all up on the network at VSiN Live. This is Live Bet Christmas, coming to you from the Circus Sportsbook right here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Join us on a numbers game where Gil Alexander takes you on an informative and entertaining ride, focusing on the numbers that fuel today's bettors.
The Pittsburgh defense is amazing. I'm not doubting that. You think it's impressive, but you don't get how impressive it is. Okay, Mr. Football, we get it. In the end, there's Mahomes, just waiting, laughing at your little rankings.
He sets the table as the money comes in each day, helping you become a sharper bettor. Catch a numbers game weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, only on VSiN, the sports betting network.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's Late Night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
watching Live Bet Christmas on VSiN.
Scott Seidenberg back here with you. It's Live Bet Christmas here on VSiN, the sports betting network. We're about 15 minutes away from kickoff of the Baltimore Ravens and the Houston Texans, and the Ravens with a little bit of extra motivation now after seeing the Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Kansas City Chiefs in the first game. Baltimore is now in control of the AFC North. With a win here today over the Texans and then a win next week against the Cleveland Browns, the Baltimore Ravens will win the AFC North and likely be the 3 seed going into the AFC playoffs, because Buffalo only needs one win to capture the 2 seed in the playoffs, and the Bills massive favorites over the Jets this weekend. Now, right now, let's take a look at the spread, as we have seen kind of some movement on this. Baltimore now 6.5-point favorites across the board, as we're seeing that move from 5.5 to 6 to now 6.5. And I wonder if a lot of that has to do with just the fact that we're seeing all these favorites dominate. I mean, this has been a historical season for favorites in the NFL. So naturally, money coming in more so on the favorites. Baltimore, like I said, up to a 6.5-point favorite, but the total staying steady at 47. So total of 47. The first game did go under, even though the Steelers kind of threatened that at the end, having the football there inside the red zone and then getting the penalty, not getting a final play off. So the game stays under, and the Chiefs cover as favorites. Baltimore 6.5-point favorites, total of 47. A couple of things I like in this game. First off, if you look at the prop bets in this game, prop markets, I like total field goals over 3.5. And the reason why I like this is because, one, it's indoors. We don't have to worry about the elements there in Houston. And 2, we have 2 of the more accurate kickers in the NFL in Ka'imi Fairbairn and Justin Tucker. And some people might be concerned about Tucker, although the 2 field goals last week, even the short field goal last week, where I believe, I forgot who the announcer was, but they said that short field goal where the Ravens could have gone for it on 4th down was probably another confidence booster to Justin Tucker. Just let him get another kick, kind of like a NBA player seeing the ball go through the hoop on a free throw, or, when you get that rebound on the free throw, or the rebound when the whistle blows and you just kind of put it back in the hoop. You just got to see one go in. And Justin Tucker, to see that go in and to regain some confidence, he also kicked a long one last week. I think that Harbaugh is going to keep throwing him out there. So we got 2 very accurate kickers, 2 big leg kickers, and so we don't have to worry about distance with both of these guys. They're certainly both capable of making kicks from beyond 50. So I do like over 3.5 field goals as one of my better bets for this game between the Ravens and the Texans. If you're just curious about, how these guys have done on the season, well, Fairbairn is one of the best in terms of the deep kicks in the NFL. Like, certainly we know about Justin Tucker and his history, and a lot of people that maybe don't follow, the fantasy stuff or the Texans that much, not familiar with Fairbairn, but he has been one of the better kickers in the NFL this season. From 50-plus, he is 13 of 16 this year from 50-plus with a long of 59. From 40 to 49, he's 4 of 5, a perfect 11 of 11 from 30 to 39. But really, 13 of 16 from 50-plus, I mean, that's impressive. That's impressive. So I do think that we do get a Ka'imi Fairbairn, at least, 1 field goal, maybe 2 from Fairbairn. And then, I think both kickers are kicking 2. We might get 3 from one kicker and 1 from the other. But I like over 3.5 field goals for the Ravens and the Texans. Again, it's Ka'imi Fairbairn and Justin Tucker combined. And so it is at minus 110 right now if you're looking online, and those are I really like that. Elsewhere in this game, I'm going to look at the defensive side of the football, and when I look at the defensive props, sacks are certainly not anything to bank on. It's no guarantee that a player is going to get a sack. You're going to see these props at plus money, and so I like taking a flyer on a plus money prop like this. And for the Baltimore Ravens, their 2 leading sack guys are Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe. And both of them, you can go on the DraftKings Sportsbook or whatever book you're at, and especially at DraftKings, they're listed at a quarter of a sack each, which means if each of those players, let's say you just bet one of them, if they record a half a sack, they're going to win this prop. You just need them to get a half a sack. You don't even need them to get a full sack, like a solo sack. They can meet their teammate at the quarterback, contribute, they get a half a sack. So over a quarter of a sack for Kyle Van Noy is plus 115 currently. Over a quarter of a sack for Odafe Oweh is at plus 155 currently. The reason why I like this is because if you look at the Texans' offensive line, they allow one of the highest pressure rates in the entire NFL. It has not been a good season for this Texans offensive line. For penalties galore, but really the pressure rate is just alarming. The third worst pressure rate in the entire NFL. They're constantly getting beat. They're constantly allowing the opposing team in the backfield. And that's not a good recipe for keeping your quarterback upright and safe. And then if you look at C.J. Stroud on the season, first off, he's been sacked in every game he's played this year. He's had 2 or more sacks in 13 of 15 games this year. So the idea that he's going to get sacked one time, I think that's almost like, nothing's a guarantee. Let's calm down. But it's a very likely scenario that he gets sacked at least once. And all I'm asking for is for one of those sacks to at least half of that be contributed to one of my guys, either Kyle Van Noy or Oweh. That's all I need to cash this. And if both of them meet at the quarterback and both get credited for a half a sack, well, then we cash this bet. As for C.J. Stroud, I mentioned that he is, throwing the ball. He's holding on to the ball. C.J. Stroud has the 4th longest time to throw in the NFL. And while you look at the quarterbacks that have that long time to throw, and you might think, oh, well, a guy like Lamar has the longest because he's able to maneuver and run around in the backfield and then create opportunities for his offense. Same thing, number 2, doesn't surprise me. Jalen Hurts, another running quarterback who can elude the pass rush and then find a receiver down the field. C.J. Stroud's not that guy. C.J. Stroud is not eluding the pass rush and then running for a ton of yards. So when he's holding the ball too long, he's likely taking sacks more than running and scrambling. Plus, with no Tank Dell, it's going to be easier for the Ravens secondary to lock down on Nico Collins, and then you wonder who's going to be the next option for C.J. Stroud. Who is he throwing to? In terms of that, I look at a prop bet for Dalton Schultz, the tight end. Naturally, he's going to be the beneficiary of no Tank Dell. The Ravens defense will lock in on Nico Collins. Nico Collins' prop, by the way, is all the way up to, it got up as high as 92.5 yards. It has been brought down. It's been bet down. It is at 89.5 yards. But Dalton Schultz up now to 37.5 yards. So it's been bet up, and it is at minus 130 to the over for Dalton Schultz to go over his receiving prop. As far as receptions are concerned, this might be the way that I would attack a Dalton Schultz. Tight ends sometimes get those short receptions. It could be a play action rollout and then dump off to the tight end. 3.5 catches is juiced at minus 175, but I like Dalton Schultz to go over 3.5 receptions in this game. Again, Ravens defense will lock in on Nico Collins, and then you're asking who's going to get the receptions now. John Mechie, Robert Woods. It's very likely to be Dalton Schultz. And again, 3.5 is his reception prop, the over at minus 175. Do you want to become a sharper bettor this holiday season? VSiN has the ultimate gift for you or the sports bettor in your life. Right now, take advantage of our holiday special and get VSiN Pro access to everything we offer through May 1st for just $79. Sign up now and get instant access to our daily best bets to help you cash more tickets, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings and Circa Sports, 24/7 video access to VSiN expert insights, plus all of our betting guides and expert picks for the college football playoff, Super Bowl, March Madness, basically everything you need to win big this season. Make this holiday season unforgettable with the gift of smarter betting. Head to VSiN.com/subscribe now and unwrap your winning edge today. Once again, the Baltimore Ravens up to 6.5-point favorites now over the Houston Texans, total sitting at 47. And prop bets that I like in this game, we're going to go with the two defensive players in Kyle Van Noy and Owe for the Baltimore Ravens to each go over a quarter of a sack. I like Dalton Schultz, the tight end of the Texans, to go over 3.5 receptions, and both kickers to have themselves a day. Give me combined over 3.5 field goals made in this game. We're going to be rooting for Tucker. We're going to be rooting for Kaimi Fairbairn. I'm Scott Seidenberg. More breakdown of this game, and we're going to get to the live betting as well because it's Live Bet Christmas here on VSiN.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup, then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
watching Live Bet Christmas on VSiN.
Scott Seidenberg back here with you, live Bet Christmas here on VSiN, the sports betting network. Always on Twitter at Scott's On Air and at VSiN Live, as we are moments away from kickoff of the Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. Looking at the market, as we are at Baltimore minus 6.5 and Houston, and the total of 47. And the prop bets that I have given out in the last segment, I'll repeat them real quick. If you have your apps open, ready to fire, I like Dalton Schultz, tight end of the Texans, to go over 3.5 receptions. I like combined field goals over 3.5 in this game, Kymir Fairbairn and Justin Tucker. And I do like sack props for defensive players on the Ravens, like Kyle Van Noy and Owe, to each go over a quarter of a sack. Elsewhere, if I'm looking, if you want to play that anytime touchdown scorer stuff, I do think Dalton Schultz is a good anytime touchdown bet. Right now, looking up on DraftKings, the touchdown props, Dalton Schultz is at plus 350 for an anytime touchdown scorer. Derrick Henry is minus 180. It's usually for these touchdown scorers. I like taking the big plus money props. I'm, certainly don't like laying that juice on a guy that, frankly, he's probably going to score, but you never know. Joe Mixon is minus 110. Zay Flowers plus 135. I can see Zay Flowers having himself a day. He has been very good against opposing secondaries, so maybe a couple of deep shots down the field, or maybe just catch and run, yards after catch. For the Texans, Nico Collins, their top wide receiver, is at plus 140. As I mentioned, Dalton Schultz at plus 350. Lamar Jackson is at plus 200 if you think he is going to rush in a touchdown. And I would not put that past Lamar Jackson, because there is a belief, and I'm not saying I believe it, but there is a belief that the MVP race in the NFL is actually pretty open. And a big game from Lamar Jackson here could be the recipe to get himself back in the race versus Josh Allen. And maybe it isn't even a two-player race. Maybe Saquon Barkley, although highly unlikely, because it's more of a quarterback award, and Barkley's going to win the Offensive Player of the Year. So I don't see Barkley being the MVP. But Jared Goff, sitting at 20-1, does have a case to be made, and maybe we'll make that case as we progress here through the program. But right now, Josh Allen is your favorite to be the MVP at minus 500. Lamar down to plus 370. But with Josh Allen having a bad performance in his last game, Lamar having a great performance in his last game, Lamar here, nationally televised Netflix Christmas Day game, and then the opportunity to win the division next week and be the 3 seed. It seems like if it's going to happen, if Lamar's going to make a case for this, he has to have a big game here against the Houston Texans. So if you're intrigued by Lamar Jackson props, again, as I mentioned, he was plus 200 anytime touchdown scorer. And then for Lamar, his rushing yardage, I saw got all the way up to 48.5. Let's just confirm what that latest number is on Lamar Jackson. He is at 47.5. Okay, so it's come down a little bit there. And his passing prop, he is at 224.5 yards. The touchdowns, over 1.5 touchdown passes, is at minus 165 for Lamar Jackson. To throw an interception, Lamar Jackson over an interception is at plus 115. The under, which is where you would lean because Lamar just hasn't turned the football over this year, is at minus 150. And that, not necessarily a bad bet, because Lamar's thrown 4 picks this year. But there was a package going around earlier around social media, and I guess it was one of the pregame shows or one of the football shows had talked about Lamar Jackson. His first 3 interceptions of the season were totally not his fault. It was the most fluky of fluky interceptions. Like, we're talking about bouncing off a receiver's hands. There was one against the Steelers, I believe, where the defender just wrestled the ball away from the wide receiver. So all three of his first 4 interceptions were not on him. It's not like he threw a bad ball. He threw it to the receiver, and it either was a drop that led to an interception or just a great play by the defense taking it away from the receiver on like one of those simultaneous possession type things. Kind of like what happened, I guess, this past week. What game was that? Was that the Bucs game where Jalen McMillan jumped up for the ball, but then the defender came down with it for the Dallas Cowboys? So that's not necessarily on the quarterback there. So Lamar is actually having a very good season when it comes to not turning the football over. So again, Lamar under a half an interception, odds have just moved on that. It's now minus 145. For C.J. Stroud, though, his interception prop, minus 115 both ways, over and the under for the interceptions. As for Derrick Henry, who's going to be the most popular prop bet of this game, his rushing prop is at 92.5 yards. I mentioned he's minus 180 for an anytime touchdown. His rushing attempts prop, 18.5 for Joe Mixon, 17.5 attempts and 62.5 yards, which is a very low yardage prop for Joe Mixon when you consider what he averages on the year and what his average prop has been on the year. However, game script does come into play here when you're looking at these props because they're 6.5-point dogs, more passing, likely to lead to less running, and so that's why a lower prop on a guy like Joe Mixon. A couple of trends as we head into kickoff of this game. John Harbaugh on 3 days rest in his career, which this game is being played on 3 days rest, 11-3 straight up, but only 7-6-1 against the spread when his teams are favored on 3 days rest, 10-1 straight up, 6-4-1 ATS. And as this game gets kicked off, let me mention this. The Houston Texans are the best first half team in the NFL. They are 12-3 against the spread in the first half. And that completely changes once we get to halftime, because the Texans are the second worst ATS team in the second half in the NFL this year. 4-11 in the second half. So they're 12-3 ATS in the first half, 4-11 against the spread in the second half. I can only look at Ravens' second half in this game. We'll see how it plays out. Before the game kicked off, it was Ravens minus 2.5 for the second half. That's actually a bad number because it probably went up. I didn't check it once the spread went up from 5.5 to 6.5. But still, the line's going to be adjusted based on how the first half plays out. I would look to fade the Texans in the second half. Also, when you consider a guy like Derrick Henry, as he weighs on you, as he runs the ball more, as you got to tackle him throughout the game, and the fact that these teams are playing, a third game in 11 days, and it's just a short preparation time, the fatigue starts to come into play in the second half. And that fatigue will show itself on defense when it comes to tackling. And one of the hardest guys to tackle in the NFL is the big bruiser in Derrick Henry. And so where I think the advantage comes, and we're going to look at the live betting props when it comes to Henry's rushing yardage, because I want to actually go over whatever the live number is later in the game. One, I think the Ravens are going to be winning, so I think he gets the ball more. Two, he's going to be a handful to tackle, and that fatigue for both of these teams, but specifically for the Texans, that will show in the second half. So I think Derrick Henry's going to really have a big second half in this game, and I certainly want to fade the Texans on the second half spread because they are, once again, 4-11 on the second half spread. That is the second worst second half ATS team in the NFL, and quite the switch from them being the best first half team at 12-3 against the spread. In sports betting and trading, understanding probability is the ultimate game changer. Unlock the secrets of high probability trading with Todd Bubba Horwitz, a former floor trader and seasoned sports bettor with over 45 years of experience. Visit bubbatrading.com/VSiN today and use promo code VSiN500 to save $500. Don't miss your chance to sharpen your strategy and gain the edge in your trading game. That's bubbatrading.com/VSiN, promo code VSiN500. I'm Scott Seidenberg. You can hit me up on Twitter at ScottsOnAir as the Ravens convert on a third down. So we're seeing, I believe it was a Lamar Jackson read option, and the Texans do have a first down as they maneuver themselves into, the Ravens have a first down as they maneuver themselves into Texans territory. We'll update you on everything going on this game, the live betting opportunities, also NBA action as well, as Minnesota has now opened up a 97-88 lead over Dallas with 4 minutes left in that fourth quarter. All of your live betting opportunities still to come right here on Live Bet Christmas on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Got a good thing coming, so wait and see. It's a good.
You spoke, we listened. Introducing the all-new VSiN Watch app. Now, you can watch and listen to VSiN expert analysis live wherever you are. Missed a show? No problem. Catch replays of VSiN's full lineup at any time. View highlights sorted by sport. Or use the search feature to find specific teams and topics you're looking for. And the best part? It's free for a limited time. Download the VSiN Watch app today. Available now on the App Store and Google Play. And join us on the Sports Betting Network. watching Live Bet Christmas on VSiN.
Did you know that you can take VSiN with you wherever you go? With the VSiN Watch app, it's never been easier to stay connected to the action, whether you're on your phone, tablet, or even your smart TV. And here's the best part. It's absolutely free for a limited time. With the VSiN Watch app, you get 24/7 live access to our audio and video streams, replays of your favorite VSiN shows so you never miss a beat, the ability to stream directly to your smart TV for the big screen experience, quick access to clips by sport tailored to your interests, and a search feature that lets you find exactly the insights you're looking for from VSiN experts. Don't miss out. Get the VSiN Watch app and stay in the game wherever you are. Scott Seidenberg back here with you. This is Live Bet Christmas here on VSiN, the sports betting network. And Merry Christmas to Derrick Henry backers. Who else but King Derrick Henry scoring the first touchdown of the game? So if you had him anytime touchdown minus 180, cash it already. If you had him at plus 300 to plus 400, depending on the book, on the first touchdown of the game, he was the overwhelming favorite to have the first touchdown. Well, you cashed it as Derrick Henry runs in from 2 yards. On that opening drive for the Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson just one pass for 27 yards to Zay Flowers. Lamar Jackson had a run for 25 yards. I talked about that read action play right before the break. Derrick Henry, 5 carries, 26 yards, and a touchdown. And now the Ravens will kick it off to the Houston Texans. Looking at the live betting opportunities right now, Ravens are up to minus 9.5. Total is up to 52.5. And keeping an eye on these live props right now. The live rushing props, let's see. For rushing, Derrick Henry is live now at 109.5. Lamar, his live prop is up to 67.5. So prior to the game, a lot lower than that, 47.5 with the 25-yard run. It escalates. Derrick Henry having already 26 yards in this game and a touchdown. He is up now to over 100 for his live prop at 109.5. Live touchdown bets, which you can do as the game kind of progresses. We mentioned Derrick Henry already cashed as the minus 180 favorites. Lamar Jackson still at plus 200. Joe Mixon now minus 125. Nico Collins plus 115. Zay Flowers at plus 165 receiver for the Ravens. Speaking of the Texans again, Dalton Schultz plus 320, the tight end. That's the one that I like. Because without Tank Dell in this game and Nico Collins being the only big receiving weapon for the Texans, you got to imagine the Ravens defense will be all over Nico Collins. And so I do like this to be a Dalton Schultz type game. Plus, with the Texans having the football, we are still rooting for sacks. We want to see C.J. Stroud get sacked. We'd love to see him throw an interception, but we're rooting for Kyle Van Noy and Odafe Owe to have a quarter of a sack each. Well, really, they just need a half. You can't get a quarter of a sack. They got to get a half a sack each on C.J. Stroud. And I'm not worried because C.J. Stroud gets sacked in every single game. So we'll keep you up to date on what's going on in this Texans drive against the Ravens. Now, once again, taking a look at the AFC playoff picture with the win against the Steelers in the first game here of the NFL doubleheader. The Kansas City Chiefs have clinched the #1 overall seed and the first round bye in the AFC playoffs, meaning the path to the Super Bowl will run through Arrowhead. And it got me thinking, and I've actually been thinking about this for a little bit of time now. Are the Kansas City Chiefs the most disrespected 15-1 team that we can think of? I mean, let's be fair. They don't cover a lot of games. Well, they covered this game. They covered last week, so they're actually doing better against the spread lately. But it just feels like everybody wants to bet against the Kansas City Chiefs. It feels like the money each week moves against the Kansas City Chiefs. And yes, they had that incredible long stretch of winning football games, but not covering football games. But for them, for Andy Reid, he doesn't care about covering the spread. They care about winning football games. This is a team that is going for their third straight Super Bowl win. How many times have we seen Forget about a back-to-back champion. How many times have we seen a Super Bowl champion start the season, not even start, have a season the following year like the Kansas City Chiefs are having, and yet still are not or were not the favorites to win the Super Bowl? Now, that's changed with the win, and that's changed with, obviously, injuries piling up now for the Detroit Lions. But the Lions were the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl, not the Kansas City Chiefs. And for a while, it was the Bills over the Chiefs. Now, with the Chiefs win, they are the favorites at plus 350. It was plus 400 prior to this game. As C.J. Stroud got sacked, I need to know who got that sack. Kyle Van Noy. Cash it. Did I just do like the hoops thing, like a basketball thing, like whoosh, swoosh, like whatever? Kyle Van Noy just got a sack on C.J. Stroud. So if you listened to the prop bet that I gave out, it was plus 115, Kyle Van Noy over a quarter of a sack. He just cashed it, getting a full sack, not even a half a sack. I wish one of his teammates, I wish Owe would have gotten in there with him so we could have cashed both of those players over a quarter of a sack. But we do get the sack from Kyle Van Noy, so we cash it. And now let's just hope that Owe gets a half a sack in this game, and we'll cash both of those. Anyway, back to the Kansas City Chiefs. They were plus 400 to win the Super Bowl prior to this game, and now they're plus 350. They are the favorites. The Detroit Lions are the second favorite at plus 400, followed by the Buffalo Bills at plus 550, the Eagles plus 650, Ravens plus 700. Now, the Ravens odds are getting better because with the Steelers losing, the Ravens are now in control of the AFC North, meaning the Ravens are going to be the 3 seed in all likelihood. And that means home games in the playoffs. So naturally, their odds are going to increase, or should I say decrease, as they are now plus 700 as the 5th favorite to win the Super Bowl. And I'm curious, after this game, should the Ravens go on to win, and they have the football now up 7-0, should they go on to win this game, how does it affect those odds? Do they leapfrog a team like the Philadelphia Eagles? I think they do, especially if we are uncertain about Jalen Hurts' status for this game against the Dallas Cowboys coming up, as he is in concussion protocol. But with a big win here on Christmas, the Ravens likely will leapfrog the Eagles and maybe become the 4th favorite to win the Super Bowl behind the Bills, Lions, and the Kansas City Chiefs. But back to Kansas City. We've never seen this before. We've never seen a team that is going for their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl have a season like they're having and essentially be as, I guess, is it fair to say, as disrespected as the Chiefs are? Kind of just feels like everybody's picking them to lose. I mean, there was that montage that went around social media recently about all the ways that they could have lost, losing by a toe to, with Isaiah Likely in week 1, or the pass interference call against the Bengals, the non-pass interference call against the Falcons, the doinked kick from their 3rd-string kicker, the blocked kick against the Denver Broncos. So many games that the Kansas City Chiefs could have lost, but yet they won those games. And now they're 15-1. They have home field advantage. They're the number 1 seed with a bye in the AFC playoffs, and they're going for their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. And it's not just their 3rd consecutive Super Bowl. It'll be their, 5th Super Bowl appearance in 6 years? Like, this is probably the greatest dynasty in football that we've seen. This is better than the Patriots dynasty. But yet the disrespect, the money coming in every week against them. People, claiming, the refs give them victories here and there. Man, it just feels like if there was ever a 14-1 team, and now 15-1, but it really felt coming into this game specifically as the market bet against the Chiefs and had them -2 against the Steelers. If there was ever a 14-1 team coming into a game that was flying under the radar, it was the Kansas City Chiefs. Think about how absurd a -2 spread is. That's the market saying that the Kansas City Chiefs were only a half of a point better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Because if we give Pittsburgh 1.5 for being home, because you would think full home field advantage, short week, all that stuff, holiday, you give them the full 1.5. Were we really being sold this bill of goods by the market that the Chiefs were only 0.5 point better than the Steelers? That is absurd. Absolutely absurd. So is Derrick Henry. We'll update you on the Texans and the Ravens, plus all the NBA action as well. Coming up next, I'm Scott Seidenberg. It's Live Bet Christmas here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
And we're out.
Okay, give me 1 sec. I need to load funds into my gaming apps.
Stormy, really, with a